The salt-laced wind of the harbor, a constant Boston companion, never quite reached the narrow, tree-lined street where the brownstone stood. It was a relic of a bygone era, a 4-story monolith of deep red sandstone and wrought iron, its windows like vacant eyes staring out at the modern world. As my parents' only child, it is now mine. I am Alex. After my parents' deaths, I chose to come back home and settle down here. I chose the 3rd-floor apartment for its raw architectural beauty. The spacious area had high ceilings that seemed to touch the sky, and original oak floors that creaked with the weight of untold stories. But the kitchen was an architectural oddity, a flaw in the symphony of design. Its floor was elevated a full foot, a strange, jarring platform that disrupted the apartment's elegant flow. I could never understand the reason for it. I'd never been up here while my mother was alive. She occupied the garden-level unit, a space I now kept double-locked, its silence a mausoleum to my fractured relationship with her. The other floors I rented out had their tenants' transient whispers in the building's long history. My mother had often complained, her voice thin as parchment, that the 3rd floor could never hold a tenant for long.
Especially not one with children.
She'd added once, a strange, dark note in her voice that I had dismissed at the time. My life is focused on precision and control. As a senior financial analyst, I dealt with numbers, predictable markets, and calculated risks. But grief is a rogue wave, and it had capsized me. 7 years ago, I had eloped with Clara, an impulsive romance that served as a rebellion against my parents' rigid expectations. My father, a man carved from granite and disapproval, never spoke to me again. After his death, a tentative truce had formed with my mother, but she was gone within 6 months, leaving me adrift in a sea of unspoken words. Now, 7 years into a marriage that felt as empty as the spreadsheets I stared at all day, my life was a hollow echo of loneliness. The topic of children, once a hopeful whisper between us, had become a wall of silent, aching grief after years of failed attempts, and the quiet closing of that door. We never spoke of it anymore. It was just another locked room in the house of our marriage. Work, home, repeat. I had moved apartments annually, a nomad fleeing my emptiness. But this brownstone, this was different. This was my inheritance, my anchor. I was determined to make it my forever home. The first few weeks were a study of unsettling ambiguity. I'd be working at the dining table and hear, from the direction of the empty guest room, the faint melodic notes of a child humming. The tune was simple, almost like a lullaby, but it would vanish the instant I tried to pinpoint its source. Other times, a faint, sweet, cloying odor would emanate from the kitchen sink drain, a smell like damp, freshly turned earth, and something vaguely floral, like lilies left too long in a vase. I'd run the water, the disposal, and it would disappear, only to return days later. I told myself it was old pipes, faulty wiring, the acoustic quirks of a century-old building. My logical mind, the analyst's mind, was a fortress against the irrational. My obsession became the kitchen floor. The oak planks of the raised platform were a slightly different shade, a warmer honey hue compared to the darker, coffee-colored boards that stretched through the rest of the apartment. When I walked on it, the sound was different too. Not a creak of old age, but a dull, hollow thud, as if there were a void just beneath the surface. "Don't you think it's strange?" I asked Clara one evening, tapping my foot on the platform. She glanced up from her laptop, her expression one of mild annoyance.
What is?
This floor. Why would anyone do this? It ruins the sightlines.
It's a 100-year-old building, Alex. It's probably hiding plumbing or something. God, can you just let it go? It's a floor.
I'm going to have someone look at it, I decided. I want to level it. Restore the original flow. Clara sighed, a sound heavy with a weariness that had little to do with her long day at the law firm.
Fine. Just try to stay grounded, okay? Don't let this place get into your head like everything else.
Her words were a subtle jab, a reference to the dark period after we'd accepted we would remain childless. A time when my grief had threatened to swallow me whole. I had thrown myself into work then, building walls of numbers to keep the silence at bay. This house was supposed to be a new start, but already I could feel the old shadows creeping in. One evening, returning from the office just as the city lights began to bleed into the twilight, I stepped into the building's ancient elevator. It was a gilded cage, all creaking mechanics and rattling groans. An old woman stood inside, her presence as frail as a dried leaf. She leaned against the mahogany paneling, wheezing, each breath a desperate, rasping struggle. "Are you all right?" I asked, my voice softer than I intended. She managed a weak nod, her eyes milky with age, fixing on me. "Do you live in the building?"
Top floor, penthouse.
She rasped, the word a bitter irony in her throat. The penthouse was a glorified attic, cramped and sweltering in the summer. "You shouldn't be out if you're this unwell."
Social Security doesn't stretch, honey. If I don't work my cleaning jobs, I don't eat.
It was a brutal, unvarnished truth that hung in the small space between us. "Don't you have any family?" A slow, deliberate shake of her head.
No one left.
"Haven't you seen a doctor? Aren't you on medication?" I pressed, the analyst in me seeking a solution, a tangible problem to fix. She took another ragged breath.
The co-pays for the prescriptions, they might as well be $1 million.
"I live on the 3rd floor," I said impulsively. "Apartment 3A. When you're done for the day, please stop by." The woman, whose name I learned was Agnes, arrived at my door around 9. Her knuckles were swollen, and her face etched with a bone-deep weariness. I gave her a glass of milk and a thick turkey sandwich on rye, which she ate with a quiet, desperate gratitude. As she was leaving, I pressed $300 into her palm. "For your medications," I insisted, closing her frail fingers around the bills. Her eyes welled with tears, and momentarily the chasm of my loneliness felt a little less vast. I'd only been in the apartment for a month, but the ghosts of my parents were relentless companions. Their memory clung to the velvet drapes and seeped from the woodwork. On my first night here, I'd had a nightmare so vivid it left me drenched in sweat. A primal scream trapped in my throat. I dreamt of earth, of being buried alive, the weight of soil pressing down, the scent of damp decay, that same lily-sweet scent from the kitchen sink filling my senses. The strange occurrences grew bolder. A single glass marble, the kind I hadn't seen since my childhood, appeared on the living room rug. I picked it up, puzzled, and left it on my nightstand. The next morning, it was gone. I searched everywhere, but it had vanished. I was convinced a child's ghost now inhabited the apartment. I'd catch fleeting movements in my periphery and hear the soft patter of small feet when I knew I was alone. But I wasn't afraid of the child. A strange, instinctual certainty told me it was harmless, a lonely echo. One night, the entire block plunged into an inky blackness. A transformer had blown, silencing the city's hum. In my apartment, a single emergency light in the dining room cast long, dancing shadows, a solitary beacon in the gloom. The air grew heavy, expectant. The moment I pushed open my bedroom door, a shape larger than a child darted past me with a gasp of displaced air and scrambled onto the fire escape. A cold, metallic dread hammered against my ribs. Who was it? Was this place truly haunted? Was any of this real? Or was it just the toxic cocktail of grief and anxiety manifesting as phantoms? I decided not to dwell on it. Clara would be home soon. Her pragmatism would be my anchor. Just as the thought formed, the power surged back, flooding the apartment with a brilliant, unforgiving light. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. The air, thick with summer humidity, clung to my skin. I needed a shower to wash away the city grime and the creeping unease. I pulled open my closet door, and a scream, raw and visceral, tore from my throat. There, nestled amongst a pile of sweaters, sat a little girl, no older than 6 or 7. A riot of dark, curly hair framed a pale, heart-shaped face. Her eyes, huge and sorrowful, were fixed on me, wide with a terror that mirrored my own. As I stood paralyzed, her lower lip began to tremble.
"Don't hurt me,"
she whispered. Her voice, a fragile thread of sound. Before I could process the impossible sight, I was shoved violently from behind. I crashed to the floor, my head striking the hardwood. A frantic, fluttering panic erupted inside my skull, like a trapped bird beating its wings against my cranium. I clutched my head, my gaze snapping back to the closet. The girl was gone. In her place, propped against the sweaters, sat a single plastic Barbie doll, its painted smile a grotesque mockery. The buzzer blared, a shrill, insistent shriek. Clara, her patience always thin, was holding the button down. The sound merged with the frantic noise in my head, a cacophony of dread. The world tilted on its axis, and I was swallowed by darkness. I woke to the sterile, antiseptic smell of a hospital, and the blurry image of Clara's face, creased with a worry that seemed more like an annoyance.
Alex, are you with me? How are you feeling?
We got home late. Exhaustion had settled deep in my bones, a leaden weight. I fell into bed and slept a dreamless, heavy sleep. In the morning, Clara brought me coffee, her movements stiff and careful.
What happened yesterday?
She asked, her voice flat, devoid of sympathy. I looked at her face, at the familiar set of her jaw, and found I had no desire to tell her about the girl in the closet. She would rationalize it, pathologize it, and reduce my terror to a symptom. Clara, we've been through so much.
I can't watch you fall apart now. Not again. This house, maybe it's too much.
Her voice softened slightly. Her fear wasn't of ghosts, but of her husband losing his mind. Later that day, after Clara left for her downtown firm, I stood under a cool shower for a long time, letting the water sluice away the lingering hospital smell. A ravenous hunger gnawed at me. In the kitchen, I ate yogurt and granola straight from their containers, my reflection a stranger in the gleaming chrome of the toaster. And then I heard them, faint whispers insubstantial as smoke, weaving in and out of the apartment's quiet. I spun around, my heart leaping into my throat. "Who's there? Who's talking?" The whispering ceased, absorbed back into the silence. Then I felt it. A small, soft hand brushing my cheek, a touch as gentle as a moth's wing. I knew, with a certainty that defied logic, that it was the little girl. I pictured her sad eyes and trembling lip, and an overwhelming wave of sorrow washed over me, a grief so profound it felt like my own. I began to cry, great heaving sobs for a ghost girl in my closet. That night, alone in the apartment, Clara called to say she was working late. I found myself in the bedroom staring at the closet. Steeling myself, I opened the door. The sweaters were undisturbed, but there, tucked deep in the back corner behind a shoebox, was the Barbie doll. Its presence was a cold confirmation. I hadn't imagined it. I took it out, my hand trembling. It was an older model, maybe from the 80s or 90s, its plastic slightly yellowed. I quickly hid it in my desk drawer before Clara came home. When she did arrive, she found me sitting in the dark. I didn't mention the doll. Later, as I feigned sleep, I heard her moving around the bedroom. I heard the closet door slide open. There was a long pause. Then, the sound of her rummaging through the sweaters. I knew what she was looking for. When she got into bed, the space between us felt like a mile-wide canyon. She had seen where the doll had been. She hadn't found it. But she knew. A seed of doubt, tiny and unwelcome, had been planted in her fortress of rationality. The next day, my analyst's mind reasserted control. I would disprove this. I spent hours searching the apartment. I checked every window lock and every possible entry point. I examined the fire escape from the balcony. It was old, rusted, and would have made a tremendous racket. No secret passages, no loose vents. My logical world was being dismantled piece by piece, and the frustration was coiling into a cold knot of fear in my stomach. If it wasn't a prank, and it wasn't a break-in, what was left? My next step was research. If something had happened here, there would be a record. I took the train to the Boston Public Library, its grand vaulted reading room a sanctuary of order and fact. I spent hours scrolling through microfiche, my eyes burning from the greenish glow. I started with property deeds, tracing ownership back. Then, I searched newspaper archives from the 1920s, the period the Super Maria had told me the brownstone was converted into apartments. And then, I found it. An article from the Boston Traveler dated October 1923. The headline was innocuous: "Prominent merchant's family departs for England." It spoke of Mr. Michael Croft, his wife Sarah, and their young daughter Maya, who had suddenly and unexpectedly sold their business interests and returned to their native England. The article quoted a business partner, Mr. Alistair Finch, who expressed his surprise and wished them well. There was a photograph, grainy and faded, a stern-looking man with dark, slicked-back hair, a woman with a gentle, sad smile, and a little girl with a riot of dark, curly hair, clutching a doll. My blood ran cold. It was her, Maya. I pulled another article, a brief society notice from a week earlier, mentioning a party hosted at the Croft residence. It mentioned Mr. Finch and his wife were in attendance. There was no follow-up, no news from England. They had simply vanished. The next day, I hired a contractor, a burly, no-nonsense man named Sal, to give me an estimate on leveling the kitchen floor. He grunted as he walked onto the platform.
Weird. Feels hollow.
He took out a tape measure and a level, his brow furrowed in concentration.
Smells funny in here too.
He said, sniffing the air near the sink.
Like dirt. You got a leak under the house?
Not that I know of, I said, my heart starting to pound. Sal pulled out a pry bar.
Mind if I try to lift one of these boards? Just to see what we're dealing with.
Go ahead, I urged. He wedged the bar into a seam and heaved. The board groaned in protest but didn't move. He tried again, putting his full weight into it. A sudden, sharp drop in temperature swept through the kitchen. The air grew frigid, and the back of my neck prickled. Sal shivered, his breath misting in the air.
What the hell?
He muttered, dropping the pry bar with a loud clatter. He looked around the room, his eyes wide and spooked.
You know what? This job ain't for me.
What? Why?
Bad vibe, man. Real bad.
He started packing his tools, his movements jerky and fast.
Something's wrong with this room. I'm not touching it.
He practically fled the apartment, leaving me standing alone in the bone-chilling cold, staring at the inviolable floor. The buzzer rang that afternoon, startling me. It was Agnes, leaning heavily against the doorframe, her wheezing more pronounced than before. "Did you get your medicine?" I asked, my voice shaky from Sal's abrupt departure.
I did, honey. Thank you again.
You don't look any better.
What's the point?
Her voice dropped to a conspiratorial hush.
My landlord's evicted me. Says he needs the unit for his nephew. If I don't have a home, what will I do?
I know a place, I said, the words coming to me in a rush. An assisted living facility that my firm supports through its charitable foundation. They have good care. You'd have food, doctors, everything. Would you want to go? I can make the calls today. Her eyes, roomy and clouded, filled with a desperate, shining hope.
Could you? Oh, honey, that would be a blessing.
Of course. Do you want something to eat?
No, dear.
Her voice dropped even lower.
I can't eat. I'm just so cold.
Cold? I said, surprised. But it's 80 degrees out.
I know. It's a deep cold, the kind that makes your bones ache.
She turned to leave, her movements slow and pained.
I should go.
I'll call you when I have everything arranged, I called after her. Before the elevator door closed, she looked back at me, her gaze so strange and piercing that it sent a shiver down my spine. That afternoon, Maria, the super, knocked on my door.
Did you hear? That poor old woman, Agnes, is from the top floor. She passed away last night.
The air rushed from my lungs. That's impossible, I said, my voice shaking. I just spoke to her this morning, right here in my doorway.
No, sir.
Her expression was sympathetic but firm.
I saw her myself this morning when I let the paramedics in. They said she died in her sleep. Peaceful, sometimes before midnight. They're trying to find any family to claim the body.
She paused, then lowered her voice.
It's a strange building, Mr. Alex. That third floor, the last family that lived here, the Wilsons, they left in the middle of the night. Broke their lease. Said their little boy kept talking to a girl in his closet named Maya, and they always complained about the kitchen. Noises and smells.
A wave of violent nausea hit me. I barely made it to the bathroom before I was sick. A violent chill took hold of me, my teeth chattering uncontrollably despite the sweltering heat. I managed to call Clara. "Clara, please, send some money to the city morgue. For Agnes Miller. for her cremation. Then, I collapsed onto the bed and fell into a deep, unnerving sleep, the scent of damp soil from my nightmare filling my senses. I woke before dawn, my body and mind wrecked with an exhaustion that felt soul-deep. Clara was still sleeping, a solid, unmoving presence beside me. My throat was parched. Not wanting to wake her, I dragged myself to the kitchen. I opened the fridge. The cool air was a brief respite. As I turned, water bottle in hand, I saw him. A figure was sitting at my dining table, head bowed low, his long dark hair slithering like black snakes across the polished wood surface. It was the man from the photograph, Michael Croft. I stood paralyzed, a silent scream building in my chest. A gentle tug on my pajama shirt made me look down. The little girl, Maya, was there, her huge dark eyes staring up at me, not with terror this time, but with a profound, shared sadness. The water bottle slipped from my nerveless fingers and shattered on the tiled kitchen floor. The noise, sharp and explosive in the pre-dawn quiet, woke Clara. When I came 2 hours later, Clara was holding a glass of milk. "I don't want it."
You have to drink it, Alex. The doctor's orders. He's scheduling a bunch of tests this evening. Drink this and take your pill.
Her voice was flat, clinical. "It's not me, Clara. I'm not sick. I'm just so scared."
Alex, this is the second time you've blacked out in as many days. The doctor thinks...
"No, Clara, the problem isn't in my body, it's in my mind. Or it's in this house. I'm having hallucinations. Please just get me a psychiatrist." To my surprise, she agreed. Seeing a psychiatrist helped, or at least the Ambien she prescribed helped. I took a leave of absence from work, and Clara, in a rare show of support, took a week off too. She hovered over me, fumbling through cooking and cleaning, her presence a constant, suffocating reminder of my own perceived fragility. The whispers in the apartment grew more distinct. Fragmented sentences carried on drafts of cold air.
"His wife. She loved me."
A man's voice would hiss from the hallway.
"He drugged the wine."
A woman would cry from the bedroom.
Under the floor. So cold.
One afternoon, my phone rang. The screen displayed Agnes's number, which I'd saved. My blood ran cold. It must be a relative, I reasoned, calling from her phone. I answered, my hand trembling. "Hello?" A burst of static crackled on the other end, followed by a sound that would haunt my dreams. A labored, rattling wheeze and a raspy, ethereal whisper.
"Honey, I'm so cold. They didn't give me a blanket. I'm so cold."
I screamed and hurled the phone across the room, where it smashed against the wall. Clara rushed in and held me as I dissolved into hysterics.
What is it? What's wrong?
It was her, the old woman. She called me. I sobbed into her shoulder. "I'm going crazy, Clara, save me. Please, just hold me." She stroked my hair and gave me another sleeping pill. Her touch gentle, but her eyes distant and unreadable. I now live in a medicated fog. The nightmares are worse, filled with the crushing weight of the earth and the pleading eyes of a little girl. I keep thinking, I used to be so strong. Why am I so afraid? My fearful mind screams, "It's real, it's real." My logical, analytical mind insists, there's no such thing as ghosts. Clara is back at work. I spend my days drifting through the apartment, a ghost in my own home. This afternoon, I was sitting on the balcony trying to find solace in the hazy cityscape. I felt a presence behind me, a sudden drop in temperature that had nothing to do with the weather. I sat frozen, clutching my teacup, my knuckles white. An ice-cold hand, a man's hand, rested on the nape of my neck. He smelled of damp soil and the sweet, cloying scent of decay. "Be brave, Alex," I told myself. Without turning, I stammered, "Who are you?" A voice, like dry leaves skittering across the pavement, whispered directly into my ear.
I am Michael. You've read my name. My wife was Sarah. My daughter was Maya. We lived here in this apartment 100 years ago.
The voice was filled with a chilling intimacy, as if confirming the clues I'd already gathered.
My business partner, Alistair, was consumed by jealousy. His wife had fallen in love with me, you see. A quiet, unrequited affair that cost us our lives. He came to our party, he drugged our wine. He killed us as we slept, and to hide his crime, he sealed our bodies in a lead-lined box beneath the kitchen floor, raising it to conceal his handiwork. He told everyone we had moved back to England. No one ever knew. We never left. We don't let anyone live in this house for long. And you will be next.
The hand vanished. As I tried to spin around, the chair was violently knocked over. I landed hard on the flagstones, a sharp, cracking pain exploding in my right arm. It hung uselessly at my side. That evening, Clara brought a doctor home, not to a hospital, but to the apartment.
It's better this way, Alex. No waiting rooms, no stress.
They set and bandaged my arm, which was fractured at the elbow. Clara was quiet, her face a grim, unreadable mask. I went to lie down, a single resolute thought cutting through the fog of pain and medication. We are leaving in the morning. I couldn't take another night in this house. Suddenly, I heard Clara cry out, a sharp, startled sound. I rushed into the living room. It was empty. 2 cups of tea sat on the coffee table, steam still curling from their surfaces. The doctor was gone too. "Clara!" I yelled, my voice shrilled with panic. "Doctor!" Nothing but the oppressive silence answered. Outside, a thunderstorm broke with a terrifying biblical ferocity. A flash of lightning illuminated the sky, followed by a deafening crack of thunder that shook the very foundations of the brownstone. And then, the power died. Plunged into a suffocating darkness, I ran frantically through the apartment, screaming Clara's name. A single candle flickered to life in the corner of the living room. In its spectral glow stood Agnes. She looked at me, not with malice, but with a profound pity.
Run.
She rasped, her voice a chorus of wind and dust.
Run now.
Then I saw them. Standing beside her was the tall man I knew was Michael, his eyes burning with a century of pure hatred, and a woman beside him, Sarah, her face contorted in a mask of vengeful fury. From the hallway, the shimmering, translucent outlines of my mother and father appeared.
Alex, run!
Get out!
Their voices echoed, a desperate, loving plea from across the veil. A guttural laugh echoed from above.
Nowhere to run.
I looked up. Clara and the doctor were hanging from the ornate blades of the ceiling fan, their necks broken at impossible angles, their faces frozen in masks of terror. Michael and Sarah lunged for me, their fingers like talons, but Agnes and the shimmering forms of my parents held them back, a spectral, struggling barrier creating a narrow path to the door. Clara's corpse swung towards me on the rotating fan, her arms outstretched as if for an embrace.
Come, Alex.
Her voice gurgled, a wet, horrifying sound.
Don't be afraid.
I fled. I burst out of the apartment and scrambled down the 5 flights of stairs, my bare feet slapping against the cold marble, my broken arms screaming in agony. I crashed through the main doors and out into the raging storm. The wind and the rain were a brutal comfort, a physical assault that grounded me in the living world. I ran blindly, a wild creature escaping a trap, down the slick, glistening Boston street. I felt a tug on the hem of my jacket. A flash of lightning bleached the sidewalk bone white. The little girl, Maya, is also running with me, her small hand clutching my coat, her huge, sad eyes fixed on mine. Let her come, I thought, my lungs burning, my broken arm a symphony of pain. Still running, with no destination in mind, only the desperate need for distance. If I survive this, I guess I can use the company. Welcome to Phantom Tales. If you don't believe in ghosts, you will. Subscribe for horror that haunts. And remember, some inheritances come with more than just keys.